Stop scrolling. Whatever you were about to tap next, let it wait. Because if you clicked on this, something already knew you would. And I want to tell you something that most people will never hear. Not because it isn't true, but because they were never quiet enough to receive it. You passed. I don't know what the test was. I don't know what it cost you. But I know the look of someone who just came through the other side of something that nearly broke them, and that look is on you right now. You think you failed. You think you barely survived. You've been replaying it in your head, asking what you did wrong, why it had to be so hard, why it had to be you. And here is the part nobody told you. The difficulty wasn't a punishment. It was a measurement. And you measured up. The reason this reached you today is that the season of being tested is closing, and the season of being trusted is about to begin. Sit with that for a second, because I need you to hear it before we go any further. Let me tell you who I am, so you know I'm not speaking from a place I've never stood. My name is George. I've spent most of my life walking alongside people in the hardest hours of their lives, the kind of hours that don't make it onto anyone's social media, the kind nobody claps for. I've sat in hospital hallways at 3 in the morning. I've prayed with men who lost everything, and women who held families together with nothing but their own 2 hands, and a faith that wouldn't quit. And the one thing I've learned, the thing I'd stake my life on, is this. The people God uses the most are almost always the ones who were tested the hardest first. Not because suffering is holy, but because something gets forged in the fire that can't be taught any other way. So let's talk about your fire. You know the moment I'm talking about. Maybe it was recent, maybe it was years ago, and you still feel the bruise when the weather changes. It's the season you wouldn't wish on anyone. The phone call you didn't see coming. The door that closed and stayed closed no matter how hard you knocked. The betrayal from someone who was supposed to stand beside you. The long stretch where you prayed and prayed and the sky stayed silent and you started to wonder if anyone was listening at all. You kept showing up anyway. You kept getting out of bed when staying in it would have been easier. You kept being kind to people who didn't deserve it. You kept your word when breaking it would have cost you nothing. That, my friend, was the test. And you didn't even know you were taking it. Here's what most people miss. We think a test is something with a clear beginning and a clear end, like school. A bell rings, you sit down, you answer the questions, the bell rings again, you walk out. But the tests that actually shape a soul almost never look like that. They look like Tuesdays. They look like ordinary mornings where you choose to forgive one more time. They look like the quiet decision to stay faithful when no one is watching, and no one would ever know if you didn't. The real test isn't the dramatic crisis. It's who you became in the long, gray middle of it. I want to tell you about a man most people skip right past when they read the old stories. His name was Gideon, and when we first meet him, he is not standing on a hilltop with a sword raised to the sky. He is hiding. He's down in a wine press, a hole in the ground, basically beating out a little bit of wheat in secret, terrified that the enemy will see him and take the little he has left. That's where he is, crouched, afraid, convinced he's the least important person in the least important family in the whole region. And in that moment, in that pit, a voice says to him, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Mighty warrior. To a man hiding in a hole. Now think about what that would feel like. You're at your lowest. You're doing the small, anxious work of just trying to survive another day, and someone calls you by a name that doesn't match the mirror at all. Gideon's first reaction is exactly what yours would be. He basically says, if God is with us, Then where is he? Why has all this happened? Why does it feel like we've been abandoned? He's not being faithless. He's being honest. He's saying out loud what you've whispered into your pillow more nights than you'd like to admit. And here's the thing that stops me every time I read it. God doesn't scold him for the question. God doesn't say, "How dare you doubt?" Instead, he meets Gideon right there in the winepress and starts the work anyway. The calling didn't come after Gideon fixed his fear. The calling came while he was still afraid. Because the fear was never the disqualifier. The fear was just the fire. That's you right now. You've been so busy measuring yourself by how scared you felt, how many times you cried, how close you came to giving up that you completely missed the title God was already calling you by. While you were hiding in your own winepress, convinced you were the weakest one, heaven was already calling you the strong one. Not because you felt strong, because you stayed. Let that land. The test was never about whether you'd feel brave. It was about whether you'd keep going when you didn't. And I think this is where I need to say the hardest part out loud, because somebody watching this needs permission to hear it. You are allowed to be exhausted. Passing the test doesn't mean you feel triumphant. Sometimes you cross the finish line crawling. Sometimes the victory looks like a person sitting on the edge of their bed at dawn, not crying anymore but not quite okay yet. Just breathing, just here, just having made it through one more night. They weren't sure they'd survive. If that's you, I'm not going to tell you to cheer up. I'm going to tell you that what you just did was holy. You stayed, and staying, when everything in you wanted to quit, is the bravest thing a human being can do. Let me tell you about a woman I knew years ago. I won't say her name. She came to me after years of caring for a husband who could no longer remember who she was. Every morning she introduced herself to the man she'd been married to for 40 years. Every morning he looked at her like a stranger, and every morning she chose to love him anyway. With no reward, no recognition, no one applauding from the sidelines. One day she told me, in this quiet voice, "George, I don't feel like a good person. I feel like I'm just getting through it." And I remember taking her hand and telling her the truth. What you call just getting through it, heaven calls faithfulness. You are passing a test most people would have walked away from years ago. She didn't feel chosen. She felt tired. But tired and chosen are not opposites. Half the people God has used most powerfully were dead on their feet when he used them. There's a woman in the old stories who understood this better than almost anyone. Her name was Hannah, and year after year she wanted one thing, the deepest ache of her heart, and year after year she didn't get it. The worst part wasn't even the waiting. It was the other woman in her household who had everything Hannah didn't, and who never let her forget it. Day after day, little jabs, little reminders of the empty place, until one day Hannah went up to the house of God, and she didn't even have words anymore. She just stood there, lips moving, no sound coming out. So broken open that the priest watching her thought she was drunk. That's how far down she was. Not praying eloquently, not standing strong, just a woman whose grief had finally run out of language. And I want you to notice something. God didn't answer her in the years when she was holding it together. He answered her in the year she fell apart. The breaking was not the obstacle to the blessing. The breaking was the doorway. When she finally stopped performing strength and just let herself be a person who needed something she couldn't manufacture on her own, that's when heaven moved. So if you've reached the place where you don't even have the words anymore, where your prayers have become just standing there, mouth moving, nothing coming out, don't you dare think that means you're failing at faith. You might be closer than you've ever been. The wordless prayer of someone who has nothing left is the loudest sound in heaven. Let me bring this all the way down to the ground, to a kitchen table on an ordinary morning. Picture a man, let's say he's older now, retired. The kind of man who used to fix everything in the house himself, and now needs help opening a jar. He's sitting alone with his coffee going cold. The house is too quiet, because the people who used to fill it are gone grown and moved away, or passed on. And every morning there's this moment, right after he wakes up, and before the day starts, where the silence presses in, and a thought he hates sneaks up on him. Maybe the best part is over. Maybe he already did everything he was going to do. I want to talk to that man, because that man might be you, or might be someone you love, or might be the person you're afraid of becoming. And here's what I'd say to him across that kitchen table. The world taught you that your usefulness was tied to what you could do, what you could lift, build, earn, fix. So when the doing slowed down, you assumed the purpose did too. But that was never where your worth lived. The hardest test of a long life isn't the work. It's the season when the work ends, and you have to discover whether you ever knew who you were underneath it. And if you're still here, still waking up, still capable of caring about one more person, then your test isn't over. And neither is your assignment. There are people who need exactly the thing that only a person who's lived through everything you've lived through can give. Don't let the quiet morning lie to you. So if you're sitting there thinking, "But George, I don't feel anointed. I feel emptied out good." That's exactly the soil where the real thing grows. The empty hands are the ones God can fill. The cracked open heart is the one the light gets into. You spent this whole hard season thinking the emptiness was the sign that you'd lost. It was the sign you were being prepared. There are messages that pass through your eyes, and there are messages that pass through your spirit. If something in you recognized itself while watching, don't dismiss it. That is the Spirit confirming what was already written. The secret protocol carries 7 keys that unveil what heaven deposited in you before you ever arrived, things no one around you has ever been able to name. It comes with the full audiobook for your moments of prayer, silence, and encounter with God. And you also receive the Awakening Map, the guide that illuminates the 5 seasons of spiritual awakening, revealing with precision exactly where you are and what comes next. You can access it through the QR code on your screen or through the link pinned in the first comment, but only for a limited time. Don't let this moment pass without a response. Now let me show you why I believe what I'm about to say is true for your life specifically. When you finish a hard season, there's a danger nobody warns you about. It's not the season itself, it's what comes right after. Because once the storm clears, the temptation is to spend all your energy looking backward, picking through the wreckage, asking why, replaying every wound. And I understand the pull of that. I've done it myself, but I want to gently take your face in my hands, so to speak, and turn it forward. Because the test wasn't given to you so you'd spend the next 10 years studying the test. It was given to you so you'd be ready for what's on the other side of it. Think about it like this. You don't give a final exam to someone you're about to send home. You give a final exam to someone you're about to promote. The very fact that you went through something this hard is evidence not that you were forgotten, but that you were being prepared for weight. Real weight. The kind of calling that would crush a person who hadn't been through the fire first. You can't carry what you haven't been strengthened to hold. And the strengthening always hurts, because that's what strengthening is. I've watched this play out in real lives over and over. The man who lost his business and thought it was the end, and 3 years later, he was the one mentoring a room full of young people who were about to lose theirs. And he had something to say that no comfortable man could ever have said. The woman who survived a marriage that should have ended her, and instead became the safe place for a dozen other women who had nowhere else to go. The thing that nearly destroyed them became the exact thing that qualified them. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. That's how it works. Let me say something practical here, because I don't want you walking away with a feeling that fades by lunchtime. When a hard season ends, there's a specific kind of work that comes next, and almost nobody does it. They just stumble forward, relieved it's over, and they never go back to collect what the suffering actually paid for. Don't make that mistake. Suffering is the most expensive thing you'll ever buy. Go back and collect the change. Here's what I mean. Sit down, actually sit down, with a pen if you can, and ask yourself one question about the season you just survived. Not why did this happen to me? That question has no bottom. You can fall down it forever. Ask instead, what can I do now that I couldn't do before? Because I promise you the answer exists. Maybe you can sit with someone in pain now without flinching. Because you've been there. Maybe you can spot a lie you used to fall for. Maybe you finally know the difference between the people who showed up and the people who only ever took. Maybe you learned that you're harder to break than you ever believed. That's not nothing. That's the inheritance. That's what the fire bought you, and it's yours to keep. And then do the second thing, the thing that turns a survivor into someone who actually lives. Find one person, just one, who is standing today where you were standing at the worst of it, and give them 1 ounce of what you wish someone had given you. Not a sermon, not advice, just your presence. Just the simple, world-changing words. I've been where you are, and you're going to make it through. Do you have any idea what that does for a person drowning in the dark? It's the difference between despair and one more day. And you can only say it with authority, because you earned the right the hard way. This is the secret the comfortable people never learn. The ones who never suffered have nothing to give a suffering world. But you've been to the bottom and back. You hold a kind of currency that can't be bought, only paid for in tears. And the worst thing you could do now is bury it, hide it, decide your story was just something to get past. Your story is the medicine. Somebody out there is sick with the exact thing you were already healed of. And here's something I really need you to grasp. The reason you feel different from the people around you, the reason you've always felt a little out of step, like you were carrying something you couldn't quite explain, is not that something is wrong with you. It's that something was placed in you. You were set apart, not above anyone, not better than anyone. Set apart the way a tool is set apart for a specific job. You don't use a surgeon's blade to spread butter. It was made for something precise, something that matters, something that requires it to be sharpened in ways an ordinary knife never has to endure. The sharpening is the test. And you've been on that stone your whole life. There's an old line in Scripture: when gold is refined, the refiner keeps the fire hot until he can see his own reflection in the surface of the metal. That's the whole point. The heat isn't cruelty. The heat is what burns away everything that was never really you, until what's left is clear enough to reflect the one who made you. You've been in the fire. I know it didn't feel like love, but the refiner only stays at the fire for the gold he intends to keep. And notice he never throws the gold in and walks away. He sits right there. He watches the whole time. The fire that felt like abandonment to you was actually the one place the refiner never left. You thought you were alone in the heat. You were the most closely watched you have ever been. He was counting the minutes. He pulled you out the second you were ready. and not one moment after. The timing of your release was not random, and it was not cruel. It was precise. The same hand that allowed the heat was the hand on the dial, and it never once stopped watching your face for the moment his reflection came clear. Let me come at this from another direction, because I don't want you to walk away with a pretty idea instead of a real one. There was a season in my own life, I'll be honest with you, the way I wish someone had been honest with me, when I genuinely thought God had made a mistake with me. I had done what I believed I was supposed to do. I had been faithful, and everything fell apart anyway. I remember sitting in my car in an empty parking lot late one night, engine off, just gripping the wheel, saying out loud to no one, "I don't understand. I did everything right." And nothing answered. No voice, no light, no warm feeling. Just the tick of the cooling engine and the dark. I want you to hear what I did not get in that moment, because it matters. I did not get an explanation. To this day, I don't have the full one. What I got, slowly, over months I couldn't see the end of, was something better than an explanation. I got changed. The man who walked into that parking lot could not have done the things the man who walked out of it eventually did. The silence I hated so much was doing something the answers never could have. It was hollowing me out, so there'd be room for something I didn't yet have the capacity to hold. That's the part I wish I could go back and tell my younger self. The silence is not absence. Sometimes the silence is the most active God has ever been in your life. He's just working below the surface, in the root system, where you can't see it and can't take credit for it. The seed in the dark ground looks abandoned. It isn't. It's becoming. So when you tell me you went through your hardest test and came out the other side feeling like you have nothing left, I don't hear someone who failed. I hear a field that's just been plowed. And plowed ground looks like destruction to anyone who doesn't understand farming. Torn up, broken open, ruined. But the farmer isn't grieving when he plows. He's grinning. Because torn open ground is the only kind that can receive a seed. Your life got torn open. Don't read that as the end of the harvest. Read it as the beginning. I think about another moment in the old stories, a man named Bartimaeus, sitting blind by the side of the road, begging. The whole crowd around him is moving towards something he can't see. And when he hears that hope is passing by, he starts shouting. And the people around him, the respectable ones, the comfortable ones, tell him to be quiet, to know his place, to stop making a scene. And do you know what he does? He shouts louder. He refuses to let his moment pass just because the crowd was embarrassed by his desperation. There's a lesson in that for you, right now, on the other side of your test. The crowd will always tell you to settle down, to stop expecting so much, to be realistic, to lower your hopes, to accept that the hard season was probably all there is. Don't you dare. You did not survive what you survived to sit quietly by the road and watch your life pass. When the moment comes, and it's coming, you cry out. You reach. You refuse to be talked out of the thing your spirit knows is yours. Because here's the final truth I want to leave in your hands. The test is not the story. The test is the first chapter, and the most important page is the one you haven't lived yet. You've spent so long bracing for the next blow that you've forgotten how to expect the next blessing. I understand why. When you've been hurt enough times, hope starts to feel dangerous, like setting yourself up to be knocked down again. But I'm asking you to do the bravest thing left to do. Not to survive. You've already proven you can survive. I'm asking you to believe again. To let your guard down just enough for something good to get in. To stop guarding the door against more pain and start opening the window to what's coming. Because something is coming. I believe that for you, the way I believe the sun is going to come up tomorrow, whether I see it rise or not. The hardest part is behind you. The part that required you to be unbreakable is over. What's ahead is going to require something different from you now. Not endurance, but openness. Not white-knuckled survival, but willingness to receive. So here's what I want from you, and I want you to actually do it. Not just think about it and scroll on. In the comments, tell me about the test. Not the whole story, just one specific moment from your hardest season when you almost gave up but didn't. The exact moment, the hour, the room, the thing that was happening when you decided to stay one more day. Be specific. It was 4 a.m. and I was sitting on the bathroom floor and I decided to make it to morning. That kind of specific. Because I read these, and there is someone scrolling through this very comment section tonight, at their own lowest point, who needs to see that a stranger made it through the exact thing they're facing right now. Your one sentence might be the reason they stay. You think you survived your hardest test for no reason. You didn't. You survived it, so you'd be standing here, on this side, ready for the thing that's been waiting for the version of you that only the fire could make.